guys, welcome back to Mysteries with Pippa. I hope you're all happy to see me as much as I am to see you. And as you can see, I now have my perfect background. So without any more waiting, let's get into our case. This case is a really odd one. It is the mysterious death of Don Henry and Kevin Ives, who were best friends. This case is also known as the Boys on the Track case. It's a really famous case in America and is still unsolved today, and a lot of it is based on theory. And let's get into the case. On August the 22nd, 1987, Don Henry and Kevin Ives decided to go deer hunting, as they always did, as best friends do, in Arkansas. Unfortunately for the young men and their family, this would be the last trip that they would ever take. In the early hours of the next morning, on the 23rd, a driver was passing by. He was just passing through Arkansas, and he saw a silhouette, or I should say two silhouettes, of two individuals lying parallel on some train tracks. They were both partially covered by green tarp. The driver stopped to try and get some help, while simultaneously stopping trains from going over the bodies. Unfortunately, the driver was unable to stop this from happening, and a train actually ran over both bodies. The scene was absolutely horrific, as it completely torn up the bodies, and after a brief investigation, it was proven that the bodies were of Don and of Kevin, and an examiner ruled their deaths as accidental, stating that they must have smoked weed and passed out on the train tracks. The family were deeply offended by this result, and they completely and utterly denied that their children would ever smoke weed and would ever pass out on a train tracks. They were going deer hunting, and they would do completely sober and aware of all the dangers surrounding them. The family were convinced that some foul play was involved, and after a long fight, nearly a year after the bodies were found, the case was reopened and reinvestigated. Both bodies were re-exhumed, and an investigation followed. Upon re-evaluation, a new medical examiner found that Don had been stabbed multiple times, and Kevin had also been violently beaten around the head and body. And what completely blew open this case is that the medical examiner could prove that both Don and Kevin had died before the train had hit them. A grand jury was called, and after deliberation, they did confirm and revise and change the death from accidental death to definite homicide. So now that you guys know the facts of the case, let's get into the theories. There is only one main theory that I can find, and what is quite interesting, if you do Google this case or do any research on this case, despite it being a really famous murder, you can't find a lot, and the information that you do find is all very the same. But what we did find with this main theory is that it was a case of wrong place, wrong time. Many do believe, including myself, that the men were going deer hunting and that they had ran into drug dealers, and that they had saw something that they hadn't seen, or they should not have seen, and that this is what led to their death. The reason why people believe it was drug dealers is because they were near Mena Airport in Arkansas, and this is notorious for drug smugglers. What is scary about this case is that people do believe it wasn't just kind of your everyday drug dealer or your everyday kind of drug lord, but that they believe higher up in the establishment, including politicians, were involved in this, and in particular Bill Clinton. As a politician at the time, Bill Clinton would have gained vastly from the drug smuggling that was happening, as did many other politicians, as it did come out that they were gaining financial gain from drug smugglers. They believe Bill Clinton was involved in this, and that Kevin and Don had seen something that was very detrimental to a politician's career, and that this is what led to their demise. What also gets even creepier on the scale factor, if that's not already creepy enough, is that the first medical examiner who missed basic and crucial evidence on the bodies, including stab wounds and head injuries, which could be found on the body a year after, that medical examiner was not allowed to be questioned under Bill Clinton's authority, as he said it wasn't necessary, despite many wanting to talk to the medical examiner and ask him why he came to the conclusion that he came to, why he thought it was accidental, and why he didn't take the stab wounds and the head injuries on both the bodies seriously. As you know, with cases like these that are unsolved, there is always complications. So if what I have said isn't enough to complicate this case further, the green tarp that partially covered both bodies on the train tracks went missing in evidence. This theory is backed up by witnesses. One witness said that they had seen two boys being severely beaten up and thrown in the back of a police car around the time that the boys would have been in the forest near the train track. And another witness also came forward and said that he saw a military type man who was around the train tracks in the early hours of the 23rd. But despite all this information, this case is still unsolved, and over 25 years later, this case will probably never be solved, not until certain politicians die or something comes out about them. I don't think this case will ever be solved. It is an incredibly sad case, and what makes it worse is that it potentially could have been solved if the wounds that were on the bodies were first spotted. Please do let me know what you guys think about this case, and do leave a comment below to have a discussion. It would be really great. And thank you so much if you've made it this far into the case. It's always important to raise awareness for these old cases, especially after so much time has passed. It can be very easy to forget about these cases, but I don't think we ever should. And with that, that is the end of this case. So please don't forget to follow me, Mysteries with Pippa, on Instagram, and I shall see you guys for another video next week.